My name is Reba Ingersoll. I am 58. On the 4th of April, my granddaughter came off the top of the tower at the Sycamore Street playground. She landed on 2 3/4 inches of wood chips. 12 inches is what goes under a deck that high. 9 days later, the county's report came to my desk with my name in the inspection box and the word none beside it. My husband's mother wrote that report. She called the tower a toddler unit. I put my coat back on and went out to the truck for the rod. The inches are stamped down the side of it, and the mud is still on it where it stopped. 10 weeks later, I laid it across a clerk's table and never said a word about it. Welcome back to Porch Stories, where a warning that somebody closed the same afternoon it was written finally gets read to a room. $212,864 came off the line that buys those chips. It is standing at the front gate of that park right now, with a name on it. Subscribe, because the county has a paper that says 12 inches, and you are going to want to know whose signature is at the bottom of it. I measure playgrounds for a living. 406 of them in 16 years, and I can tell you the surface under every single one, because that is the whole job, and everything else is paperwork about it. The card in my wallet says Certified Playground Safety Inspector. When a county bolts a piece of equipment to the ground, somebody has to come and say whether a child can fall off it and get up. Nobody falls off a swing correctly. They fall off it drunk on themselves, sideways, mid-sentence. My job is the ground. On the first Tuesday in September, I was on my knees at the base of the tower at Sycamore Street with the rod in both hands, and the chips smelled like rain and cedar and something underneath that had already turned. My granddaughter is 6. She is mine on Tuesdays, and the tower I was kneeling under is the one she goes up. The rod goes straight down until it stops. You read the number at the top of the chips, 3.5. I sat back on my heels and read it again from the other side, the way you weigh yourself twice on a bad morning. 3.5 inches, under a deck that is 8 feet up. 12 is the number that belongs there, not my 12. The tower's 12. She had been up it the Tuesday before, with me at the bottom of the ladder and my thumb through the belt loop of her coat, and the last time I had put a rod in that ground was the year before. 40 feet behind me, at the front gate, 4 men were setting the last stones of a walkway, and the bronze at the head of it had been up since August. The chips are not decoration. They are the reason a fall is a fall and not a funeral. Loose fill packs down under the swings, gets kicked out of the landing spots, and rots from the bottom, and every year somebody has to put more in. More does not arrive by opinion. It arrives on a truck. I drove to the county building and went to the purchasing window, which is the second window down the hall past the assessor, and Zenobia Zellwood, the purchasing technician, was behind it, as she has been since her hair was another color. Every load of anything the county buys arrives with a paper, and every one of those papers ends up in her hands. She had 11 yards going to the Fair Street site that week, and she had the ticket for it on the counter, and she did what she does before she does anything else. She read the ticket number out loud, all of it, digit by digit, before she looked at a single other thing on the page. Then she said the sentence I have heard her say to 2 commissioners and a girl from the newspaper. Fiber is sold by weight, she said. It gets weighed on a scale at the mill, it gets weighed again on the truck, and it comes with a ticket. No ticket, no yards. I asked her to check Sycamore Street while she had the drawer open. She checked. She went back a year, and then she went back another one, and she came to the counter with her glasses up on her head. Nothing, she said. Not a yard in 2 years. 2 years is every Tuesday I have taken that child to that park. I did not walk out of that building knowing what I know now. I walked out thinking somebody had forgotten a park, so I wrote it up. A non-compliance report is 1 page with a carbon behind it. Depth measured, depth required, location, date, signature. White copy to the department. Pink copy stays with me. The pink copies go in the root case. The root case is a flat green satchel with a brass button and Coulter C.O. Parks stenciled across the flap in letters that are mostly gone now. It rides on the back of my passenger seat. It was not mine first. It belonged to Verena Wolverton, who had this job before me, and everybody in that shop called her Wolverton, including her husband. So that is what I will call her. She put it in my hands in the shop lot the week she retired, when I was 32 and certain of things. The case is not for the ones that go right, she said. And then she said the line I have never been able to set down. A depth is not an opinion. It is a number a child falls through. I filed the September report at 2 in the afternoon. At 4, the yellow copy came back to my mailbox at the shop with a line through the middle of it and one word in the box at the bottom. Corrected. Signed at the bottom in round upright letters I have been reading since before my daughter could write her own name. Oralie Casterline, my husband's mother. She is 79. She has been the chair of the Parks Foundation for as long as there has been one, and 11 years ago the county made her the volunteer liaison, which put a stamp in her hand. The stamp is the part that matters. A liaison can close a report. I called her from the truck. Reba, she said, before I had finished the second sentence. It is a toddler unit. I said the deck is 8 feet up. I said I had just come from it. It was taken care of, honey, she said. There is a note. Then she asked whether I was bringing potato salad on Sunday in the same voice, without a seam in it, anywhere. That is the voice. Not a shout, nothing you could take to anybody. A woman letting you know the weather has already been seen to. I am not going to come out of this story looking careful, and I am not going to arrange it so that I do. What I thought, driving home, was that the note was wrong, and the ground was right, and the ground would still be there in 30 days. A closed report comes off my 30-day list, so I put my own 30 days on it, in pencil, in my own book, which is a thing no computer knows about. 30 days later, I was back on my knees at Sycamore Street. 3 inches. It had gone down, not up. Nothing had been put in. The surface had been dragged around, and there were tine marks in it from a rake, in long curves, the way a comb goes through wet hair. I filed it, 2 in the afternoon, yellow copy back by 4. Corrected. Isabel, she is my daughter's girl, and she has been mine on Tuesdays and Thursdays since she was in a car seat, because those are the 2 nights her mother closes. Tuesdays and Thursdays are not babysitting. They are the whole arrangement of my week, and everything else gets moved for them. This was the year she got tall enough for the tall one. There is a mark on the post by the ladder at Sycamore Street with a hand painted on it, and you have to reach past the hand to be allowed up. And in June, she reached past it and turned her head and gave me her whole face. The tower is the one with the 8-foot deck. Before that year, she had been on the little unit at the other end, the one with the steering wheel and the deck a grown woman can put her elbow on. That is what a toddler unit is. It is the one she was too big for when she was 4. She has a thing she does on the ladder. She counts the rungs out loud, and at the top she stops, and she looks down before she goes anywhere, because that is the rule I gave her the first week, and she has never once broken it. Look before you go. She says it back to me from up there, in the voice of a person quoting a law. In November, I went back a 3rd time, 2 3/4. I knelt there with the rod in my hand and the rain starting, and I read the same number I would read in April. 2 3/4, under 8 feet. 12 is what belongs there. I filed it at 2. The yellow copy was in my box by 4, with the line through the middle and the word in the bottom corner, and her name under it. 3 papers, 3 closes, 3 afternoons that did not last long enough for anybody to have driven a truck anywhere. If you have ever written something down and had it come back to you handled, tell me in the comments what it was about, and subscribe, because the 3rd close is the one that moved my granddaughter's park onto a different list. A site whose reports keep getting closed is a site that has been fixed 3 times. It goes to the once-a-year line. A closed report is a quiet street. Nobody drives down it again. In December, I got the winter schedule, and Sycamore Street was on it for the following October. And I did not so much as raise my chin at it, because that is what a fixed park looks like on paper. Wolverton called me that same week, the way she calls in December, because December is when she cannot get up her own driveway and gets talkative. She is 84 now. She still asks about surfaces before she asks about people. I told her I had filed 3 on the same site, and had 3 come back closed. She was quiet long enough that I checked whether the call had dropped. "Who closed them?" she said. I told her. Then she said, "Does she go out there?" I said she goes out there every Tuesday morning with a bucket and picks up what the wind brings. I said she has been at that park longer than the equipment. "Well," said Wolverton, "then she has seen it." I did not do anything with that for 4 months, and that belongs in this story ahead of everything else in it. She said it in December, and I did nothing until April, because the woman she was talking about had held my hand at 2 funerals. I took Isabel to Sycamore Street on Tuesdays all winter. That sentence has been said out loud in exactly 2 rooms before this one, and both times it was me saying it. I took her there because the file said it had been fixed 3 times. And because when I looked at the ground with my eyes instead of my hands, it looked like a park where something had been done. Fresh curves in the surface, chips turned dark side up, the whole landing area combed out and level, the way a bed looks made from the doorway. Rake marks are not a depth. I have said that to a maintenance crew in 3 counties. On the 2nd Tuesday in January, I brought Oralee half a ham, because that is what our family does in January, and she had the coffee on that she keeps hot from 6 in the morning until she goes to bed, and her hands smelled like the lotion in the green jar. She had the foundation's ledger book open on the table with a ruler holding her place. She turned it toward me and showed me the walkway line. Pavers with names on them already sold, 2 full columns of them, and a photograph of the bronze with her finger resting on it. "Your father-in-law taught half this town to ride a bicycle on that grass," she said. I said I knew. He taught me. I was 26 and could not turn left. Then I said the number under the tower is 2 3/4, and it should be 12. She poured. She did not look up. "It is a toddler unit, Reba," she said. I said it is 8 feet to that deck. "Well," she said, "nobody has ever come off that tower. Not once. And I am the one who put it there." That is the whole of the conversation. She put a slice of pie in a container for my husband and walked me to the door with her hand on my back the way she has since I was a girl who had married her son. The 4th of April was a Tuesday. It was warm enough that Isabel had her coat unzipped, with that thin, early spring sun on everything, and she wanted the tall one, and I said yes. I was at the bottom of the ladder with my thumb through the belt loop of her coat, which is where I stand. She went up counting. 6, 7, 8. At the top, she stopped. She looked down at me. She said, "Clear," because that is our word. I said, "Clear." I do not know what happened between the deck and the ground, and neither does she. The deck rail there has an opening for the slide, and a child gets turned around at the top of a slide the way anybody does at the top of anything. She came off backward. There is a sound when a person lands, and it is not a thump. It is smaller and drier than you would think. It is the sound of a bag of groceries being set down hard on a counter. She did not cry. That is what I could not get past that day, and cannot get past now, and every parent listening to me already knows why. A child who lands and cries is a child taking a breath in order to cry. She lay on her side with her cheek in the chips and her eyes open and moving. I did not run to her. I knelt down at her head where she could see me without turning it, and I put 2 fingers on the back of her hand and said her name. "Grandma," she said. "My ears are loud." Then she said the other thing. I have carried it around in my mouth ever since. "I looked," she said. "I looked first." She was fine. I will tell you that part right now, because I know what it is to sit through a story with a child in the air. She was in the hospital one night, and she came home in the morning, and she is in the 1st grade, and she is fine. She has headaches in the afternoon sometimes, and she gets them written down, and there is a follow-up in the fall that we do not talk about in front of her. The emergency room at the county hospital smells like warm plastic and the pink soap in the wall dispensers. They put the light in her eyes. They asked her the day of the week, and she got it right and looked at me to see if she had. They asked how far she fell. I said 8 feet. The doctor wrote it down without looking up, and then he did look up, and he said, "Onto what?" "Onto 2 3/4 inches of packed wood fiber," I said. "It is supposed to be 12. He set his pen down on the counter. He is a man in his 50s who has been handed every kind of story there is, he said. Who measured it? I said I did. 3 times. In September, in October, and in November. That is when my hands started. Not at the ladder, not in the ambulance bay. In a room with a doctor holding a pen, 12 hours late, and I had to put them under my arms to make them stop. My daughter got there after she closed, still in her work clothes. She stopped in the door of that room before she came in, and what her face did in that 1 second is the only thing out of that whole night I have never said out loud to anybody. I stood up out of the chair and gave her the chair. I drove back out there at first light the next morning. Nobody had touched the site yet. There was still the shape in the chips where her body had been, the way snow keeps the print of a dog. I put the rod down about a foot from that shape and I let it go in under its own weight, which is how it is done, and I read it. 2 3/4. Then I took it again all the way around the tower, 1 step at a time, because a number you take once is a story, and a number you take over and over is a measurement. 2 3/4 was the deepest one. The mud on the rod is from that morning. There was rain in the night, and the top layer was wet, and the wet came up with it, and it dried on the steel at the mark. And I have not cleaned it since, and I am not going to. Wolverton would have cleaned it. She was a great one for the tools. I called her from the truck with my forehead down on the wheel and told her what the number was and where I had taken it from, and she did not say anything for a while. Then she said, "Keep the rod dirty." 9 days went by. You would think something happens in those 9 days, and nothing does. That is what a county is. A child goes off a tower, and then there is a form, and the form goes to a department, and the department has a Thursday. I went to work. I did 14 sites in this county that week, and I have never been so careful in my life. Whiston, my husband, drove Isabel to her follow-up on the Friday because I could not be in the car with her yet without watching her in the mirror. And she told him the ceiling tiles at the clinic have a pattern that repeats every 5th one. The Tuesday in the middle of those 9 days was mine, the way every Tuesday is. I picked her up at the school door, and then I sat in the truck with the engine running and could not think of one place in this county to take her. We went home and made pancakes at 5 in the afternoon like it was a holiday, and she asked me twice when we were going back to the tower. After her mother came for her, I brought the root case in off the truck and sat down on the kitchen floor and went backward through the pink copies, and when I ran out of the ones in the case, I got the box down out of the hall closet. 16 years of pink paper. Most of it came back to me with nothing on it, because most of what I write gets fixed by somebody who fixes things. Some of it came back with a line through the middle and one word in the box. And I sat there until 1 in the morning with a thing I had never once had a reason to think. A report that was truly fixed and a report that was raked looked the same in my hands. Same yellow copy, same word, same afternoon. There is one thing on this earth that tells them apart, and it is a piece of paper with a weight on it. I had carried that case around for 16 years, believing it was a record of parks that got fixed. Every one of those parks has somebody's Tuesday on it. And on the 13th of April, the county's incident report came to my desk at the shop. 2 pages. The second one is the one where it says equipment, it says toddler unit, fall height 4 feet. Where it says surfacing at time of incident, it says within specification. Where it says date of last inspection of record, it says none performed, March. And down at the bottom, in the box where the reporting official signs, in those same round upright letters, R. Lee Casterline, Volunteer Liaison, Coulter County Parks. I read the second page standing up, with my coat still on, and then I sat down on the metal stool at the parts counter and read it again from the top. 406 playgrounds in 16 years, and the one with my grandchild's print in it is the one with my name in a box marked none. 4 feet is the little unit at the other end, the one with the steering wheel, the one she outgrew at 4 years old, which is a thing my daughter has on video. 8 feet is the tower. The tower is the reason 12 is the number. She had written down a different piece of equipment. I called her. She answered before it had finished the first ring, the way she always does, because she is never more than a room away from a telephone. I said, "You wrote that the park was inspected by nobody in March." She said, "The records show no inspection that month." I said, "Because you closed the 3 reports that would have kept me on it." And she said it in the same voice she has used since she was a woman in her 40s and I was a girl marrying her son. "It is a toddler unit, Reba." Then she said Isabel was in her prayers, and she meant it, and I know she meant it. And that is the part I still cannot lay flat. The next morning, I put in a records request, which anybody can do, including you, and which costs $9 if they have to copy more than 50 pages. I wrote what I wanted by name, on the form, in block capitals, because the form has a box, and the box is small. I did not ask for Sycamore Street. I asked for every park in this county. Zenobia at the purchasing window had the folder ready in a day and a half. She did not slide it across the counter. She came around the end of it, which she has never done in 16 years, and she kept her palm down on the folder until I looked up at her. "You are entitled to these," she said. "Sit down over there and take as long as you want, and I will bring you water. 2 years of delivery tickets for Coulter County parks. Every yard of anything that came off a truck into any park in this county. Fair Street, Buckthorn Road. The school district lot, we do under an agreement. The fairgrounds, 200 and some tickets, and she reads every number on every one of them out loud when it arrives, which is why she is never wrong. Not one of them says Sycamore Street, and Sycamore Street is not the only park in this county that is not in there. I sat in a county hallway on a bench with a folder open on my knees and turned pages until a woman came out of the assessor's office and asked whether she could get me a chair, because I had been standing on that ground all winter with my grandchild's coat in my fist. Then Zenobia came out and sat down next to me, which is also not a thing she does, and she said the other half of it. "There is no money on that line," she said. "There has not been since the spring before last. You cannot order what there is no line to pay for. Nobody down here refused you. There was nothing to refuse you with." Then she told me to go see Zebulon, who runs the crew that would have spread it. He is 61. He has one knee that is his and one that is not, and he has never in his life said a sentence with a curve in it. I found him at the shop with his boots on the desk and a coffee going cold, and I asked him straight out what had been done at Sycamore Street in September, October, and November. "We raked it," he said. I asked him what came off the truck. "Nothing came off the truck," he said. "There was nothing on the truck. We got a work order that said restore surfacing and we had no material, and I called and asked, and I got told it had been handled at the front end." He took his boots off the desk. "A rake makes it look like something happened," he said. "That is all a rake does. If you want it to look like a park, you rake it. If you want it to be a park, somebody has to buy the stuff." Then he asked me how she was, and I said one night in the hospital, and he put both hands over his face and left them there. That man has grandchildren on the Fair Street unit every Sunday. You cannot rake up what was never delivered. Anybody who has ever moved dirt from one side of a hole to the other knows that, and it took me 8 months and a night in a hospital to know it. The change to the budget line came a week after that. It is 1 page. It has a date in April of the year before last, and a line coming out, and a line going in, and the same figure on both sides of it. $212,864. Out of surfacing, and into the memorial walk at the front gate of Sycamore Street Park. That is not a hidden number. It went through a public meeting. It is in the minutes with the vote count and everything. And it was described in that meeting as a reallocation of unspent funds. Unspent, because nobody had spent it. Because for 2 years, nobody had put a yard of chips under anything. So the money sat there looking like a surplus. The way a rainy summer makes the reservoir look generous. I drove out to see the rest of it with my own eyes on the 6th of May, in the rain, at 7 in the evening, with the truck running. The bronze at the head of that walk is no bigger than a placemat. It is set into a block of limestone at knee height, so a person has to bend down to read it. which is a thing about memorials nobody plans and everybody does. The name is at the top, my husband's father, and the years, and under that the words, "A good man of this town," and at the bottom, in the same raised letters, in a line that says, "Donor total, $212,864, to the dollar." The identical figure that came off the line that buys the chips, cast into metal at the front gate of the park where my granddaughter's head hit ground that had 2 3/4 inches on it instead of 12. I stood in the rain and I read it 4 times, and then I got back in the truck, and I did not cry there either. And I would like to be a different kind of woman about that, but I am not. Wet bronze smells like pennies. I had never known that before, and now I know it. If I leave the true things about Aurelie Casterline out of this, then I am doing to her the thing she did to me, which is writing down something with a piece missing. She has been at that park for 41 years. She was there before there was a foundation. She ran a bake table on Saturdays out of the trunk of a Buick and put the money in a coffee can. And when the town wanted to put a road through the west end of that grass in 1991, she stood up in a meeting and said no in front of 100 people, and she won. Her husband taught the children of this town to ride bicycles on that grass, including my husband, including me. 4 years ago in October, he died in his own front room, 6 steps from where she stood making him something to eat. And her name was never on one single thing. Not on the sign, not in the paper, not on a plaque, not once in 41 years. She is a woman whose whole life was work that nobody signs. I know exactly where that walkway came from. It came from a woman of 79 standing in her kitchen after the funeral, realizing there was going to be nothing anywhere with his name on it, and finding a line in a budget with money sitting on it that nobody had spent in 2 years. She did not take $1 out of this county. She moved it from under the swings to the front gate. That is precisely why she could tell herself it was not taking. I have sat with that. I have sat with it in the truck and at 3 in the morning and at her own kitchen table with coffee in my hand. And when I am done sitting with it, my granddaughter still came off 8 feet onto 2 3/4 inches, and 12 is still what belonged under her, and no part of that story ever gets to be a reason. A depth is not an opinion. It is a number a child falls through. If somebody's grief has ever been handed to you as the reason your warning did not count, put that in the comments for me, and subscribe, because the paper that ended this had been sitting in a county file cabinet for 5 years with her signature on it. Now, there were 4 parks on that surfacing line: Sycamore Street, Fair Street, Buckthorn Road, and the little one behind the elementary school on 5th Avenue that most people in this county do not know is a county park at all. I drove all 4 of them in one afternoon in the 2nd week of May with the rod in the truck. Fair Street measured 10 inches, and it was fine. Fair Street is the one Zenobia had the ticket for. I put the rod back in the truck and stood in that parking lot with my hand over my mouth. Buckthorn Road measured 4. And the one behind the elementary school on 5th Avenue measured 2, under a climbing frame taller than I am. And while I was on my knees at it, a class came out for recess. 20-some children, the way water comes out of a hose when somebody unkinks it. I stood up and moved out of the way with the rod in my hand, and I watched a boy in a green coat go up that frame while a woman with a whistle counted heads. 2 inches, under a frame I have to look up at. 12 is what belongs under a frame like that, the same as the tower, for the same reason. It had been 3 years for that one. 3 years, no ticket, no yard, no money on the line. I did not tell that teacher anything. There was nothing I could have said in a parking lot that would not have made her afternoon into a panic with no place to put it. I went back to the truck and wrote it up on the hood and filed it that afternoon, and it did not get closed, because by then nobody was closing anything of mine, and it sat there open like a hole in the floor for 6 weeks. 20-some children on 2 inches, and a woman with a whistle counting them back inside. The one that ended this took 2 weeks, because it was not in purchasing at all. When somebody gives a county a thing, the county has to write down that it took it. Equipment does not just appear on public ground. Somebody signs for it on both ends, and it goes in a file with the deed and the insurance and the mowing contract. Zenobia found it in the fixed asset file for me and did not say a word about the fact that she had gone through 3 drawers in another department on her own time. I read it on the concrete steps outside the county building at 4 in the afternoon in the 3rd week of May, with a woman from the treasurer's office eating a sandwich 6 feet away from me. 1 page, 5 years old. The Parks Foundation, gift of one play structure, and the whole description straight off the manufacturer's own sheet, which is where those words come from. Model number. Then the words, deck height, 8 feet. Then, on the line under it, in the same print, the manufacturer's requirement, 12 inches engineered wood fiber, compacted, maintained. And at the bottom, on the donor line, the signature. Arlie Casterline, Chair, Coulter County Parks Foundation. She signed the paper that says 12. 5 years before she wrote the report that says 4 feet, and within specification, she sat down at a table, took the cap off a pen, and put her name under a line that says 8 feet and 12 inches. There is a picture of her at that table on the wall of her hallway, on the way to the bathroom. I have walked past it 100 times in 5 years. I never once looked at what was under her hand. The sandwich woman asked if I needed her to get somebody. That is how I found out I had made a sound. The first thing I did with that paper was nothing. I did not take it to Orly. There is a version of this where I drive to her house and put it on that kitchen table next to the coffee she keeps hot all day and watch her read her own name. I had it. I could have had it by 6 that evening. I have thought about why I did not, and the honest answer is not that I am gracious. It is that I have known that woman for 31 years, and I knew exactly what would happen. She would have said, "It is a toddler unit, Reba." And then she would have gone and stood at the sink. And then there would have been 2 people in a kitchen and nothing on a record anywhere, and 5th Avenue would still have had 2 inches under it. So I took it to somebody whose job is not to love anybody in this. Winifred Eubank is the risk manager for Coulter County. She is the one who has to answer for what this county owes when a person gets hurt on its ground. Her office is in the basement and has a photograph of a bridge on the wall. I put the root case on her desk and unbuttoned the flap. 3 pink copies with the depths and the dates on them. The 3 yellow closes with the signature on them. 2 years of delivery tickets with no Sycamore Street in them. The change to the budget line. The incident report with the word none in it. And the acceptance paper on the top of the stack with the 12 on it. She read for 40 minutes and did not ask me one question until the end of it. Then she closed the folder over her thumb and said, "Are you the inspector who wrote these 3? I said yes, she said. Then you are not a complainant. You are the record. Do you understand the difference? I said I was starting to. A complainant is somebody who is upset, she said. The record is what the insurance company reads. She kept the case overnight and made her own copies and gave it back to me the next morning with everything in the order I had put it in, which is a small thing that I have not forgotten. And she told me to file for public comment at the June meeting, and to bring the originals, and to bring the rod. I said the rod is dirty. She said, "Bring the dirty rod." The Saturday before that meeting, Arlie came to my back door with a pie plate that had been mine since Easter. She did not come in. She stood on the step with the plate in both hands and the dogwood behind her and asked me to take my name off the agenda. Not for her, she said. For the family. For my son. This will follow him. I said the 4th park has 2 inches under it and children on it every day at 10:40. And she said, in the voice, on my own back step, with my own pie plate in her hands, "It is a toddler unit, Reba." I said the paper you signed says 8 feet. She looked past me into my kitchen, the way you look at a room you have been in 1,000 times, and she said, "Things were done the way they were always done." Then she put the plate on the rail and went down the steps sideways, one at a time, holding the rail, 79 years old. I stood there and watched her go, and I did not help her down my own steps, and you can put that wherever you want to put it. That night, my husband and I had the worst hour of our marriage in our own front room with the television dark. He is a good man. He is not weak, and he is not a coward. And he has never once in 31 years asked me to be smaller than I am. He learned to ride a bicycle in that park with his father running behind him holding the seat. He was in that park the day of the funeral, because that is where everybody went afterward. He said, "She is 79, and she buried him in that park, Reba. Let the county fix it quietly." I said quietly, "Is what has been happening." He said the county can put the chips down without a room full of people watching his mother be the reason. And I said the only thing I had, which was, the county has known for 8 months, and the county raked it. He went to bed. He did not slam anything. He is not a man who slams things, and I lay awake beside him in a dark bedroom thinking about his father holding the back of a bicycle seat, and the truth is I was not decided until about 4 a.m. What decided it was not a principle. It was a Tuesday. Tuesday is my day with her. That is the arrangement of my week, and everything gets moved for it. And I lay there and understood that if I took my name off that agenda, I was going to spend every Tuesday I have left driving that child past parks I had measured myself and could not stand in. There was one more thing in my house that could have ended that whole meeting in 90 seconds. It gets one mention in this story, and this is it. We have the images from the hospital. We have the emergency room record with the times on it, and the light they put in her eyes, and the questions they asked her, and what she said back. What is not on that record is her mother in the doorway of that room. There is no box on a county form for that, and there does not need to be. That chamber has a document camera. Anything you set under it goes up on the wall 8 feet wide. I had it in my hands for 2 days, and I turned it over in them. But that room does not get to look inside my granddaughter's head in order to believe a ruler. The ruler is enough, and the ruler is hers when she is older, if she wants it. Nobody in that chamber was ever going to see one thing that belongs to Isabel. They were going to see a piece of steel with mud on it. The Parks Commission meets on the second Monday of the month at 6 p.m. in a room on the first floor with 40 chairs in it. There are usually 9 people in those chairs, and 4 of them are staff. That night, there were about 30. Word gets around a county the way a smell gets around a house, and the school on 5th Avenue had sent a note home to parents that Friday about a surfacing inspection, which is the kind of sentence that empties a room into another room. Zebulon, who runs the crew that had raked it, came in his work clothes and sat at the back with his hat on the chair beside him. Zenobia came up from the purchasing window and sat 2 chairs down from him with her purse on her lap. Arlie sat in the first row on the aisle, with the Foundation's ledger book in her arms, in the blue jacket she keeps for funerals and for anything with a microphone in it. And in the 3rd row, on the end, 84 years old, in a rain hat, was Wolverton, who had my route before I had it. She has not been to a county meeting since 2009, and she does not drive at night, and she would not tell me who brought her. Public comment is 3 minutes. There is a table at the front where the clerk sits with the minutes and the recording, and it is between the microphone and the commissioners, and everything that gets entered into the record goes across it. 10 weeks later, I laid it across a clerk's table and never said a word about it. Then I set the root case down beside it, unbuttoned the flap and turned it to face the clerk, and I went to the microphone and used 1 minute and 10 seconds of my 3. I said my name and my certificate number. I said that on the 6th of September I measured 3.5 inches under the tower at Sycamore Street, that on the 6th of October I measured 3, and that on the 8th of November I measured 2 3/4. I said that on the 5th of April I measured 2 3/4 again, all the way around that tower, and that the deepest reading anywhere in it was the one I had just given them. I said the required depth is 12 inches. I said the pink copies are in the case, that the county's own closures are behind them, that the delivery tickets are behind those, and that I would answer any question anybody wanted to ask me. Then I sat down. I did not say one word about the rod. I did not point at it, and I did not explain it, and I did not touch it again. It lay there across the clerk's table, 3 feet of steel with the inches stamped down it, and a stripe of dried mud where it had stopped, in front of a room where every person in it had already looked at it twice. The risk manager, Winifred Eubank, went up next. She had a folder of her own, and she was in the chair beside the microphone rather than at it, because a staff member speaks from the table, and she said she would take longer than 3 minutes because staff is not on the clock. Then, she read. She read the 6th of September, 3.5. She read the 6th of October, 3. She read the 8th of November, 2.75. After each one, she read the date of the closure, and each closure was the same date as the report, and she said the word same out loud each time. Same day, same day, same day. Behind me somewhere, a man said a word under his breath that does not go in the minutes. Then she read the change to the budget line, and the date on it, and the figure on both sides of it. $212,864 out of surfacing into the walk. Then she read the incident report of the 13th of April. Toddler unit. Fall height 4 feet. Surfacing within specification. Date of last inspection of record. None performed. Then she picked up the last page in her folder and said she wanted to note that this document was 5 years old and came out of the county's own asset file. She read the model number. She read deck height, 8 feet. She read 12 inches engineered wood fiber, compacted, maintained. And then Winifred Eubank, who has never met my granddaughter and never will, put the page down flat on the table and said the only sentence out of that whole evening that I dream about. Whose signature is at the bottom of this? Nobody answered her. She waited. She is a woman who knows how to let a room sit in a thing. Then she picked up my rod off the clerk's table, and she held it up at an angle so the light from the ceiling came down the side of it, and she found the mark with her thumb and read it out. There is wood fiber on this at 2.75, she said. It is dry. It has been on here since April. 2.75 against 12. An older woman in the second row said, "Oh my Lord," out loud, into a room with a recorder running, and it is in the minutes as an inaudible remark from the gallery, but it was not inaudible to me. That is the whole thing. That is what 8 months and 406 playgrounds and a night in a hospital comes down to. 2.75 against 12, and a woman in the second row with her hand over her mouth. Aurelie got up to speak with the ledger book still against her chest. She has good posture. She has always had good posture. And she went to that microphone like a woman going to a lectern at a church supper, and she said the things she believes. She opened the ledger book on the lectern to the page she had the ruler in, and read out what that foundation has put into that park since 1985. Bake tables, memorial benches, 4,000 daffodil bulbs, the tower itself. She said the foundation has maintained that park for 41 years without a dollar of anybody's help. She said the walkway was paid for out of a line that had been sitting unspent for 2 years, which is public record, and which is true. She said the records show no inspection that month. She said, "It is a toddler unit," with a paper on that table carrying her own name under the words 8 feet into a live microphone to a commission with the folder open in front of them. She put that sentence into the record again. And then she turned around, away from the microphone, and looked at me in the fourth row, and said the sentence I did not have any way to answer. "You put a 6-year-old's accident on a public agenda," she said, "to settle something with your husband's mother." I did not answer it. I have not answered it since. I sat there with my hands on my knees and let it stand in that room, because there was one thing on that table that could answer it, and it was not me, and it was lying right in front of the clerk with mud on it. That is when Wolverton got to her feet in the third row, 84 years old, in a rain hat, with both hands on the chair in front of her. She said, "That green case was mine before it was hers." She said, "I carried it for 22 years, and there has never been a wrong number in it." Then she sat down, and she never did say who drove her. The chair called for staff recommendation. Winifred said the county should close all 4 sites at the end of the meeting and keep them closed until a certified inspection shows the required depth at every one of them, and she said the word certified with her eyes on the front row. They voted that night. It took less than a minute. The way a thing takes less than a minute when everybody in the room has already decided and is waiting to be told they may. All 4 sites closed, effective immediately. Fifth Avenue was taped off before 9 o'clock the next morning, before the first recess bell. That is the part I keep, not the vote. The tape going up before the bell. Nobody was arrested. Nobody is going to be. And that is not a thing I ever asked anybody for. And I would like anybody listening who is waiting for handcuffs at the end of this to hear me say that out loud. What happened instead is smaller than that, and it does not come off. The commission adopted a change to the department manual at the July meeting. 9 lines. A non-compliance report may be closed by the inspector who wrote it, or by the risk manager, and by no one else. The volunteer liaison position was eliminated in the same motion. There is no stamp anymore, because there is no hand to put it in. Aurelie Casterline is still the chair of the Parks Foundation. Nobody took that from her, and nobody should have. But she cannot close anything. Not a report, not a work order, not a line. She can raise money, and she can pick up litter on Tuesday mornings, and she can stand at a microphone, and that is the whole of it now. Feelings soften by Thanksgiving. A line in a manual does not soften. The foundation voted in August to pay for the first delivery out of its own reserve, and the check request goes to purchasing with the chair's signature on it. So there is a piece of paper in the purchasing drawer, in Zenobia Zellwood's hand, with Aurelie's name on the bottom of it, buying 12 inches of the exact material she moved the money away from, and it went across that counter the way everything goes across that counter. Zenobia read the ticket number out loud when the truck came. All of it, digit by digit, before she looked at anything else on the page. 55 yards into Sycamore Street on a Wednesday in August. The first load that park has had in nearly 3 years. Zebulon's crew spread it. He called me from the site when they were done and did not say hello. 12.5 at the deepest, he said. I am not leaving it at 12, and you can write that down. He is a man who has never said a sentence with a curve in it, and there was one in that. I went out with the rod that evening and took it in 9 places, and every one of them came back over 12, and then I stood at the bottom of that ladder for a while by myself. The county's insurance company looked at all of it. There is a claim, and there are lawyers on the county's side of it, and there is a number somewhere in a file that I have never asked to see and do not want. The hospital bill from that one night went where hospital bills go. We are on a plan. It is $110 a month, and it will run until Isabel is 9, and I have made my peace with that number in a way I will never make peace with 2 3/4 where 12 belonged. Fifth Avenue reopened on the 21st of September with the required depth under it and a laminated card zip-tied to the fence that says the date it was last measured and who measured it. That card was Winifred Eubank's idea. She put it on all 4 sites. She never once called me to tell me she had done it. And I found the first one on my own route and sat in the truck looking at my own name in a plastic sleeve. Nobody has to sit on a kitchen floor at 1 a.m. with 16 years of pink paper to find out whether that ground is deep enough. It is zip-tied to the fence. Whiston and I are all right. We are not what I would call finished. He drove his mother to the July meeting and sat with her, and he came home and told me he had done it, straight out, at the kitchen counter. And I said thank you for telling me, and that was true, and it was also all I had. He has not once told me I was wrong. He has not told me I was right either, and the not saying has a chair in this house now, and some marriages have a thing like that in a corner and it turns out you can still eat dinner. He goes with me to the park now on Tuesdays. That started in October, and we have never once put words to it. There is no apology anywhere in this story, not one, in 8 months, in any direction. The closest thing to it came at Thanksgiving, at that same table, when she said, to the middle of the table, that things had gotten away from everybody a little. Everybody. Away. A sentence with nobody in it. I passed the potatoes. She asked me in that room, in front of 30 people, whether I had put a 6-year-old's accident on a public agenda to settle something with my husband's mother. I did not answer her that night, and I did not answer her at Thanksgiving, and I am going to answer her here, one time, and then I am done with it. My granddaughter, lying on her side in the chips with her eyes open, said, I looked first. She was 6 years old and she was telling me she had followed the rule I gave her. I looked too, 3 times, in September, in October, and in November. And I wrote down what I saw, and I signed it, and I handed it in, and somebody put a line through the middle of it by 4 in the afternoon. That is the answer. It is not about a woman. It is about a number. A depth is not an opinion. It is a number a child falls through. There are 2 rods in my truck now. The new one is clean and lives in the door pocket and is the one that goes into the ground on my route. The old one is in the route case, wrapped in a shop rag, with the wood fiber and the dried mud still on it at the mark where it stopped on the 5th of April. Wolverton told me to keep it dirty, and I have kept it dirty. When Isabel is old enough to ask a real question about that year, it will be in the case for her to be handed, and she can decide then whether she wants it. Here is my Tuesday now. I pick her up at the school door and we go to Sycamore Street, and she runs to the tower and I go get the clean rod out of the door pocket, and she has to hold it with both hands because it is nearly as tall as she is. She pushes it in until it stops. She reads the number off the side and says it out loud, and it has been 12 or better every single time. Then she says clear, and I say clear, and she goes up counting. 6, 7, 8. And once a month, on the first Tuesday, Wolverton rides my route with me, 84 years old, with a thermos between her feet and my old truck's heater on high, and she gets out at every single site. She does not measure anything. She stands at the edge with both fists pulled up inside her sleeves and looks at the ground, and then she gets back in and says, All right, that is the whole ritual, and I will do it as long as she is able to climb up into that truck. That's my story. 3 papers closed the same afternoon they were written. 1 bronze plate at a front gate with $212,864 cast into it that belonged under a tower, and 1 steel rod with dried mud on it that a room full of people looked at twice before anybody said a word about it. If your grandchild plays on a public playground, do this before the snow. Stand in the landing spot under the highest thing on it and push your heel straight down. If it stops in the first 2 inches, call the parks department and ask them one question: when was the last delivery, and may I see the ticket? It is a public record. It takes them a day and a half, and it does not cost you $1. Share this with the woman whose warning was filed, closed, and filed again. And tell me in the comments about the thing you reported that came back to you marked handled. I read them, every one, and I will read yours. Subscribe, because the woman this story is actually for is somebody's grandmother who is about to be told that what she measured is her opinion. That's all of it. Thank you for sitting with me on the porch tonight. I'll see you in the next one.